action.
Yeah, fucking action. Let's go. So there's no official.
How do you pronounce your last name? Bakhtiari?
Bakhtiari.
Bakhtiari.
Bakhtiari. And what's your brokerage?
Compass.
I'm now with Compass.
You're now with Compass.
Now with
like
Compass.
Like a bitch.
Compass Mass?
It was between Compass and the reference group.
Oh.
It was no call back.
Wow.
I guess in
Oh, I think we need to
No.
save this.
no. This is a me issue, to be clear. This is a me issue.
Seth forgot to follow up with me.
That's correct. I did. I didn't forget. I just figured, I don't know.
No, truthfully, reference, I had a small list of firms, and they were on my list. A very small list. But
we're going to add this into the
Yeah.
podcast, yeah.
yeah.
Why Sean did not choose
Well,
the
I think
company.
we should table this discussion for a little later.
It was less about why not One Direction and more because of. Anyways, we can talk about it whenever you guys want to talk.
No,
about
we
it.
should. We can talk about it. I don't care. Can you say something one more time, Sean?
Yeah, test.
Here we go. I'm just going to turn you up a little bit. Good, because you're a little.
Yeah,
You're a little soft. You're a little softy.
Sam knows.
All right, let's rip it. Okay,
Yeah.
we're recording. So, welcome to the podcast, Sean.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today.
Usually, Brendan's going to kick us. Do you want me to?
I'm happy to.
Brendan
do it.
usually kicks us
Yeah,
off.
usually I'm the starter.
But sometimes when he's less familiar with the guest, he makes me do it, and he tells me once we're recording. So
I'm happy to do it
Okay,
today
cool.
because I asked the pronunciation and where he was.
Good.
Kick us
Good.
off.
And I'll probably screw it up even though I just asked. So we have Sean Bakhtiari
You nailed it.
from Compass with us today, Mass and New Hampshire licensed, and just general boss of the North.
Boss of the North.
Well, great,
Yeah.
great intro.
Yeah.
That's
honored.
actually what we call him, boss of the North.
Oh, I mean, he didn't even tell me that, and I knew.
And we've all done several transactions together.
Adjacent, I would say.
Well,
or
transactions. One transaction's removed, yeah.
for me. Yeah.
Because Sean has historically handled a lot of our New Hampshire biz. Because I refuse to get in the car and drive there, and secondly, be licensed there in general.
And I appreciate that. I tell all my fellow agents that when you start getting referral partners from your colleagues, that's
Yes.
a vote of
But then it
confidence
still
more so than
angers me
anything.
when you post under agreement in like Boston. I'm like, F you, Sean.
Where's the call?
Yeah.
It's because I'm greedy and I'll go anywhere.
Yes.
At,
Well,
at this point in my career.
that's okay. That's
Have
okay.
car, will travel.
Right. Yeah. I've seen you with those signs on the side of the road, so I can understand.
But I appreciate the referrals. I appreciate your trust in me. And
Of course.
all your clients are just as cool as you guys are. Like, just
Well,
good people.
They are all good people. Most of them are very good people, we'll say. Yeah. And they all moved to the middle of nowhere, New Hampshire.
Southern New Hampshire. Really?
And-
well, some
and-
people more so north than others.
And I got to
but
be honest with you, like I think New Hampshire gets this rep that it's like really inexpensive.
It's not.
Dude.
Not anymore.
I think a lot of those transactions are like they're pretty high ASP, average selling price. They're pretty high.
They're
7
high-
digits.
They're high price,
A lot
but
of the
well, they're
times.
selling in mass, presumably for a high price, and then they're getting
Right.
more for their money in New Hampshire. And sometimes it's a bigger house, sometimes it's more space. But a lot of people are moving to New Hampshire because they want more privacy and they
Sure.
want more land, and they're trying to, through COVID, they just realized how important privacy was in space.
Yeah,
Or
no
they
doubt.
have estate tax savings issues.
Yep.
New Hampshire,
Mhm.
the land of no taxes, right, is the most advantageous trust laws in the country.
I think about
Or
that
some
now.
of, yeah.
My wife and I talk about that, the benefits of moving across the border
Mm-hmm.
from a tax perspective.
Yeah.
If it's an option, but right now we're happy in Newburyport.
You still live in Newburyport too, right?
Still live in Newburyport. I live on Plum Island.
How are those kiddos?
Ah. Is that
They're-
Newburyport or West Newbury?
It's Newburyport.
It is,
Plum Island
okay.
is oddly split up between two towns. The
Or
north,
Newbury, I'm sorry.
yeah, the north part
didn't
of
know that.
the island is Newburyport.
Yeah.
The southern part of the island is Newbury.
Yeah.
If you go way south, like to the conservation
To the
land,
oh yeah
then
yeah.
it's Ipswich.
Oh,
Really?
that's Ipswich.
Yeah.
That
Huh.
road, like from the gate to the end parking lot, is the longest drive I've ever been on.
Yeah, it turns into a dirt road.
Yeah.
And so some people ride their bikes down there and they just
Yeah.
get, dirt and debris in their face. So I always tell people, don't bike down there. You just, you
Just
Drive.
get smoked.
yeah.
Drive and have a car wash pass
Yeah,
because
so-
you're going to need a car wash after.
Yeah, so we've been on Plum Island for 7 years, moved from Southie to Plum Island, and got the
Mm.
twin girls. They're 3 years old now.
How was that adjustment from Southie to Plum Island?
Honestly, it's not that bad of an adjustment. We started our home search in Boston. and
Yeah.
At our price point at the time,
Mhm.
we were realizing we can get a 1-bedroom with no parking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 7 years ago, we started looking in beach communities, and so the next best thing for us was by the beach, and we bought what ended up being a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house for under $500,000 with a garage.
Incredible.
Wow.
You're still there.
Still there.
And with a 2% interest rate.
Never leaving.
We'd be priced out of Plum Island if we were buying today. The prices are just crazy.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
We've said this a million times on the podcast. Like, a lot of us are not buying the house that we are in today at today's price, at today's rate.
Yep.
Very scary. If you do the math. Payment might be triple.
Yeah, I tell all my clients that if you're going to be in your property for a decent amount of time, you're not going to be there and sell shortly after, then that gives me confidence that you're not overpaying for a property.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. So, listen, we're excited to have you on today.
Yeah. Hold on, I want to go back to Southie for a second.
Okay.
The transition. So we lived in Southie.
You did too.
Yeah,
both
before we. Well, no, not. Well, yeah. Me and my partner lived in Southie before we moved to Nahant, and the adjustment was overwhelming. Like the delivery selections
of
diminished.
Well,
food delivery.
That just might be a Nahant thing.
I bet it's a Plum Island thing too.
It is. We don't have the best food options on the island.
Yeah.
So we always go off island to get anything close enough to what we were getting in Boston.
Yeah.
But the biggest adjustment was the food.
Yeah. It's horrible.
But now
the food's still pretty good.
Now if you go to downtown Newburyport, I will say we have so many great restaurants now.
Yeah.
And that there's more of a variety. We have like Mediterranean tapas places. We've got Mexican places. We've got your traditional pubs. We've got fried seafood. Now it's great, but 7 years ago it wasn't as diverse.
Yeah, that was the hard adjustment for us, was the food delivery. There's good restaurants around us, but not a lot of them delivered when we moved there.
Same. We don't have a lot. We have pizza and subs for delivery options.
Yeah.
And then
Can't like Uber Eats it?
they don't go to a lot of the restaurants. A lot of the good restaurants don't have the Uber Eats option.
Really?
It's starting to get more and it's starting to grow, but
He's so urban. This
no,
isn't a problem
so
for him.
Most of the restaurants hate Uber Eats because they steal a lot of the revenue. And my understanding is like you send all that food out and you get paid like monthly.
Really?
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's a restaurateur, a client of mine. This was like 2 years ago. I don't know if they've changed it, but like he's like, I hate it. They take 33%. And on top of that, I have to pay all these costs.
Yeah.
And I get paid 2-3 weeks from now. And some restaurants can't handle that swing.
That's a huge cash flow issue.
Yeah, unless you're just killing it.
Right.
You know,
that probably explains why there's not many Uber Eats options where we are.
It really kills the margins.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
and the quality, I would assume, like that. I bet the people call the restaurant when they're pissed, not Uber Eats, like right when the food comes cold or
someone ate half their French fries or something. Yeah. So
we digress.
Off of Uber Eats, Sean, we're excited to have you on today. And as always, we just love to have local realtors on, talk a little bit about the micro market that is the North Shore market, the Southern New Hampshire market, as a lot of folks are fleeing from the city still and heading up north. The city market continues to be extremely volatile. And I think, and I'm sure you're seeing the same thing, we were just talking about it offline, the single family market for turnkey, nice properties, the demand is bonkers.
It's insane. It's insane right now, yeah.
And so I'd love to just today talk about your take on what's going on in the market. And then, of course, since you are a Airbnb entrepreneur in and of itself, with a property management company, right? Seacoast Vacation Rentals.
That's correct. I now co-own Seacoast Vacation Rentals, founded it about 5 years ago.
Awesome.
And own 7 short-term rental units.
Yourself?
Myself.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, with my brother. We are partners in our small but growing portfolio of short-term rentals.
And you're probably on Plum Island.
No. Well, I own my
Hampton?
primary residence on Plum Island, so I have 2 units in Hampton Beach, 2 units in Salisbury Beach, 2 in Myrtle Beach,
And
1 in Cape Coral, Florida.
Right, Southwest
Oh,
Florida.
wow,
Right.
okay.
So, so I'd love to just talk about a little bit of the property management stuff, the Airbnb stuff, and kind of get your take. We've talked a little bit about the Airbnb market and kind of what we think is happening, a little oversaturated in different places. So just be interested to hear your take kind of over the next hour on a few different things. So if it's cool with you, let's just backtrack a little bit and start specifically with your background in real estate. How'd you hop into the market? What'd you do before? Because I believe, like most, you were in some sort of corporate job, right?
I was,
like me, right? So, and you found your way into this business, and you're doing great at it, right? So, tell us that story in your history, and then we'll hop into the rest of the market stuff. Cool?
Yeah, let's just see where the conversation goes.
Yeah,
but I'll start from the beginning of my time in real estate. which was after a 10-year career in finance. I worked in corporate finance in Boston for 10 years, and I was in a variety of different roles. I started in sales, then moved to marketing, and then there was a small new group that was established, client experience, and then I moved to that group. After about 10 years in corporate finance, well, really halfway through my 10-year career, I really knew that I wasn't going to be in corporate America my whole life, or I was hoping I wouldn't. And so I started to create a couple side hustles and a couple side hobbies during the second half of my time in finance. And that's when I started to invest in my own property. So I bought my first short-term rental in 2018 with my brother in Hampton.
After your primary residence.
After my primary residence. I bought my second short-term rental a year later, still working full-time in finance. And then people started to take note of what I was doing and asked me if I could manage their short-term rentals, and I never really had a plan to manage other people's rentals. But then I looked around in my market, and I realized there was no full-service property managers that existed, and there was probably an opportunity to build a business. And
when you say full-service property management, tell us what that means to you.
Full service is everything is completely hands-off and completely passive for the homeowner, so all they do is collect a monthly check, direct wire to the bank account of their choice, and they leave the management to the professional so that they could maximize the income, make sure the home's maintained well, marketed right, any and all issues handled, all communication done by the team. And so, yeah, it's full service property management.
Stop hitting the table.
Oh.
It just makes a thud.
That's it.
Yeah. I wasn't trying to hold your hand.
I thought we had a piece of hair in my... You were taking some hair off my
fingers. No, you were annoying me. I love that.
He's very shy.
Yeah, sorry. I love that. And so I want to talk a lot about that stuff, but continue.
Yeah, so anyways, after about 10 years in corporate finance, I quit to build a short-term rental company.
What does that day look like? Like when did you know it was time?
I knew it was time to make a change a few years prior to actually making the change.
Yeah.
And and once you have that realization,
yeah,
something weird happens to you while you're working a full-time job in finance. Let me also say, I had a really good experience in my corporate job for those 10 years, and I learned a lot, and I was surrounded by really great people. But my personality wouldn't allow me to like climb the ladder. I just couldn't do it for the long term, for my mental health. Once I realized that I was going to make a change, in a weird way, you start to care less. Not that it affects the way you work, but when you care less, you become more relaxed, and you become more creative, and you become happier. And anyways, I was in Colombia for my cousin's wedding. And I had this epiphany in Colombia. I'll never forget it. It was an epiphany at an outside bar with all my friends and family, my father included, and a bunch of like aunts and uncles and cousins. And we were just talking about life. And I was surrounded by a bunch of people older than me that were entrepreneurs themselves. And they pretty much told me what I already knew, which was like, what's the worst case scenario? You leave your job, you could always go back. You have the skills to always go back. And I'll never forget like that epiphany. I was so confident after that night of what I was going to do that when I got home a couple of days later, I put my notice in.
Dope.
And
that's awesome.
Never looked back, but it was scary. It's always scary, but I was
still scary, I would assume.
It is still scary, to be quite honest. But I was in a fortunate position because I had saved up a lot of money, and I had the support of my wife, and I had 2 income-producing short-term rentals. They weren't producing much, but they were producing enough to give me like a little bit of a leeway to grow a business. So I left with the sole purpose of building a short-term rental business. No plans on becoming a licensed realtor at all. And I guess my portfolio of clients' properties grew from 4 to 10 to 15 in about a year and a half, which is not huge. But I was doing everything myself. This is the craziest part, I was even cleaning all the units myself because I was that desperate for more money.
Yeah.
Because I left a good paying job with good benefits. I was cleaning units on my hands and knees, cleaning toilets. This is no joke. Just to make $100 to clean, to pad my bank account so that I could have a longer runway of like time to build a business.
Yeah.
And then it got to a point where
that's insane.
It's insane. But I look back.
It is until it isn't, right? Like
I look back at that time being like, I can't believe I did that. I will never clean a property again in my life. Not because I'm too like bougie, but because I'm not good at it. I'm a bad cleaner.
They're good cleaners are like insane.
I'm a very bad
They come
cleaner.
in, they clean this place top to bottom in 3 hours. Every sheet is crisp, I can't even imagine if you gave me $1,000 or like turn over the short-term rental and you have to do it by 4 p.m., dude, I think you'd be getting a lot of maintenance requests.
I remember injuring myself. I was injuring myself cleaning. I was pulling muscles. My back was going out. This is no joke. I got to the point where like I was so injured at one point, I needed my wife's help. I was like, can you come clean with me because I can't put the bed sheets on by myself. And so that was like the first year and a half after corporate finance, just doing everything myself, building a business. And now we manage 64 short-term rentals. I've got an amazing business partner, Chris Petsy from Portsmouth. He owns about 7 units himself. I own about 7 units myself. All of our personal units are managed the same way our clients' units are managed. And anyway, shortly after leaving corporate finance and building a small boutique short-term rental company, I realized I should probably get licensed because I'm going to buy more properties.
No doubt.
People are asking me for help analyzing properties.
So what year was that?
I left finance in 2018.
Dope.
Got licensed probably a year later, and then I joined a local boutique brokerage called Fru Realty, now acquired by Gibson Sotheby's.
Yeah.
And I was with them for about 3.5 years until I joined Compass not too long ago. So I've been a licensed realtor full time this is my 4th year.
So we met pretty early on in your career then.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think a lot of people think I've been a licensed realtor for longer than I have, because I've been in real estate for
a longer period of time.
Yeah. And I'm also one of the people that like I just post a lot on social media. So I think people see a lot. People think I'm busier than I am, and I am busy, don't get me wrong, but you know, the perception of social media isn't always like the 100% accurate truth. But
wait, what?
Yeah.
That's shocking to me. Are you saying
I should just go home now, right? It's not all real.
People post things that aren't true on social media.
No. I'm saying people.
Not Sean.
People see what people do, and they blow
interpret
it up,
it
and they exaggerated it.
Yes.
I'm very active on social media, so people think that I've been doing this my whole life. I've been a licensed realtor now. This is my 4th full year.
Yeah,
awesome.
This probably will shock you. I literally hate Instagram so much because it's so frustrating, and I'm obsessed with trying to grow it right now. And hence the egregious amount of content that we're putting
How
out.
often do you look at your number of followers?
Honestly, not that often, because the best part of it is I have little to nothing to do with it anymore. It's fantastic.
I have a couple annual goals, and of course they're like number of transactions, volume. One of my goals, sadly, is Instagram followers. It's such a sad goal.
What are you at?
Like 3,070 or something.
Wow.
This guy's got
celebrity.
This guy's famous.
My goal. I'll just put it out there. My goal on January 1 was to go from like 2,500 to 5,000.
Yeah,
which is not huge, and it sounds kind of
lofty.
It sounds like pretentious a little bit.
Yeah, I hear you.
And so I hate to like sound pretentious, and it's not really about followers, but it's about influence. And so like
right.
My hope is that I could have a lot of followers so that I could share things that I think I'm knowledgeable about.
Yeah.
Right.
And so by having a lot of followers, you get to share more with the world, and hopefully people get a lot of value out of it, just like what's coming out of this podcast.
Right.
Hopefully there's some content. Well, not hopefully. There will be some content that people will find valuable,
Right.
and it gets to be shared on social media.
So
it's
100%.
like, it's one of those weird things. People shy away from trying to grow on social media, but it could make such a positive impact if it's done genuinely and right.
Yeah.
Well, and especially in your expertise, I think it's something that a lot of people, especially in the investor world, are questioning is like, is it the right move? And I think knowing a lot about short-term rentals, you have a lot of value to add in that space.
It's also a real sexy topic that I think people want to learn about, specifically the younger generation that's on social.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I became a licensed realtor, I knew that I wasn't going to be as experienced as the most successful realtors at the time, but I knew I can control 2 things. I can control 1, service. I just wanted to provide the best service, be the most responsive, and just be there for my clients, because sadly, not everybody is responsive and provide good service. So like bare minimum, provide good service. Secondly, I wanted to be more active on social media than my peers, and I can control those 2 things. So I just controlled those 2 things from day one, and I think that's helped me so far in my young career. And we'll talk about the market, I'm sure. There's some things you can't control, like the market or rates or inventory, but you can control your service. You can control your general brand. And so like from day one, I just tried to control the things I could and just try to do those things better than the average realtor. And if you have that like simple mindset, I think it goes a long way.
Dope. I love that.
I think it reminds me a lot of your story, Seth, in that, you wanted to provide better experiences in the real estate world.
Yeah, very similar.
Yeah.
I think I also went full-time in 2019, fun fact. Also quit my corporate job in 2019.
What was your catalyst?
So it was 2000, 2013, 14. No, you do, I think. I was making good money. I was running stores for Best Buy out here. And, whether it was like HGTV or like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, a couple good books on investing and trying to just wealth in general, right? Psychology of Money, like all these good books about how to save, like obviously real estate is always a huge anchor in that, right? And so I kind of just went on a quest to invest in multifamily, and I got super addicted to the Bigger Pockets ecosystem and the podcast, right? And you listen to enough of those. In the meantime, I'm driving. I'm spending a lot of time in the car, and like you get some pretty good acumen if you're paying attention, and you can get it. And then I started just literally analyzing as many multifamilies as I could, and like I'm sure now, like you're talking the Chelsea multifamily we were just talking about, right? Like as long as the rents are a certain amount, like $7,500, $8,000 north, that place is making money. It might not be for everybody, even at $1 million. It might not be for everybody, but it's going to make money. Maybe not at 7% interest rate. I'd have to rerun it, but and so I just got really good at analyzing properties, and then I was like, okay, I want to buy one, and or just ran into a bunch of bad agents who are most like, and the difference. Like, there's a lot of like, I'm a residential real estate salesperson. I know nothing about multifamily investing. I'm just going to treat this like it's another house with one apartment, and they're selling it to the owner-occupant demo, not the investor demo. And there's a huge difference, right? So I found that like there was that, niche, which is the right way to say it. I found that there was this niche out there that was lacking, and just with a little bit of due diligence, I was like, screw this, I'm going to get my real estate license. And so I did it part-time for like 3 or 4 years. Part-time's not the optimal word. We've talked about this before. I worked 40 hours in real estate and 40 hours in my real job, sometimes 50 and 50, 7 days a week for a long time. And, eventually I got promoted. I was working in upstate New York and Connecticut. And so literally every Tuesday I would leave Massachusetts. I'd go spend 2-3 days in upstate New York and Connecticut running stores and whatnot. And then, I got busy. So like literally at the same time, my wife ended up leaving her work for some family health reasons to take care of her dad. And I took advantage of that. I was like, hey, can you go to the smoke inspection? Like, can you go to this home inspection? Like, I was like just sending her everywhere. And she's like, I hate this. Like,
you were doing what I was doing with short-term rentals. You were just doing it all, trying to make it work.
Trying to involve my wife.
Early on. Yeah.
Make them do the hard work with me, right? And the pipeline got big. And I was like, dude, what am I doing? Like, I know for a fact if I just spent all of my time here, I can make way more money. And to your point, it was about service. Like, you can't give the best level of service if you're not present at every single wake and turn, right? So, but dude, I just love it. I just love real estate.
It's
it's so fun.
I think some people think when they see what realtors do, again, on social media,
Glam.
it's all glamorous.
Yeah.
I work twice as much now, at least twice as much now than I
maybe more.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I work 7 days a week, number one.
Yep.
And
you have to.
I definitely work twice as much, but I enjoy what I do, so it doesn't feel like work to me. To my family, it probably feels like work because I'm gone more,
yes,
and I'm busier more, so that's always challenging. But at this stage in my career, at this age, I really just love what I do, and I'm so competitive with myself, not with others. So I'm just trying to test myself, like how much can I give to others, and thus how much can my business grow? And it's really just an internal test, and that's fun because I don't have sports like I used to. So now the new sport now is real estate.
Yeah, well said. But yeah, I mean, and here we are, right? Like, it'll be interesting because like they this is year 5, right? If you're tracking with the stats of us being full time, they say 87% of realtors fail within the first 5 years.
Yep. I think this is going to be one of those really turnkey years because of how challenging this year is proving to be. There's going to be a lot of people leaving the industry, lenders and
Association of Realtors already down 60,000 members, I think, this year.
Tom Ferry stat?
Yeah.
In
You saw that?
For the listener, what is challenging about this year?
What isn't?
I know, but I
Yeah.
think some of our listeners may or may not know.
I think, that's a good question because maybe listeners don't, if you're an active buyer, you know it's challenging. But if
Yeah.
you're not an active buyer right now, it might not seem as challenging as it is. So it's a very challenging market right now for two main reasons, in my opinion. Reason number one, most importantly, there's such a lack of inventory, especially in residential areas, like more so outside the city.
Mm-hmm.
There's such a lack of inventory, and there's way more buyers than there are homes for sale. So there's there's a large amount of buyers all competing for a small amount of homes. That's number one.
Yeah.
Number two, rates are higher than they were.
Mm-hmm.
We're probably in around the 7s today, and 2 years ago we were in the 3s or 4s.
Mm-hmm.
So, you're looking back 2 years ago and comparing today's rates to 2 years ago, and today's rates are still below the 30-year average from my understanding. So,
Absolutely.
So we're still the rates are still okay. They're not as
Mhm.
good as 2 years ago, but they're okay. But people
But 2 years ago was an anomaly. Like
Yeah.
that's a
100,
once in a
100%.
lifetime situation.
exactly the biggest challenge, the biggest reason that there is a lack of inventory is because homeowners, if they were to sell their home at a 3-ish% interest rate, they don't have a place to go, and if they buy another place, they're going to buy it at a higher price and at a higher rate. So they're just staying put. So the big challenge today is inventory.
No doubt.
Agreed. And this is something. Yo, what's up?
Wow.
This is
Wow.
something we have drive-bys.
We are in Boston.
It's
still,
urban.
so
I love a good urban feel.
yeah, doesn't matter how much soundproofing you put in the room,
The lack of inventory is something that I feel incredibly passionately about. And I think especially in suburban neighborhoods and ex-urban neighborhoods, or however you want to describe sort of the further you get out from the city. But it's a zoning problem, right? Like you see these communities with 2 and 3 acre lot requirements, and they make it hard to build stuff. And we're lucky that not that we're lucky, but like imagine if interest rates were at 3.
Right.
And we had this lack of inventory, we would, there'd be twice as many buyers, and we still can't get offers accepted. So like in some ways, the interest rate is helping a little in terms of like moving people through the process, but it's hurting the inventory. But I think the bigger, more fundamental issue is in the Northeast, especially, we have a limited amount of land. We have incredibly restrictive zoning all up and down the East Coast, essentially. And New Hampshire, Massachusetts, they don't make it easy to build housing. I was at something this morning and they were trumpeting, wetland bylaws that they've put into place. And all I could think of is like, you're making it more expensive for people to build housing. Your next slide is on housing unaffordability. And you're talking about like all these measures that you've taken that essentially make it more expensive. And it's just mind blowing.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah,
my soapbox.
No,
I like how you go into that because people don't go that deep into the reason for lack of inventory, and that's 100% one of the main reasons. Especially
Biggest reason.
especially in our market.
Yeah, it's terrible. We've been tracking a lot with how many homes are just on the market in Massachusetts, like from MLS Pin. In the last, like, pretty much all year, we've gone from somewhere from like 2,600 homes total in all of MLS Pin, single family, to like 3,300. Right now, it's actually 4,005 as of right now.
That's massive.
Good week.
And
get your buyers out there.
Well, it's Wednesday, so nothing's under agreement yet.
That's it. We talk about that too, right? Like the numbers always flex up midweek because you get new listings, but no one's marked their stuff pending yet, or sometimes contingent still in there. But more specifically, what's interesting, if you look at quote unquote affordable homes, whatever that actually means around here, like, and you just snap the chalk line at 700K. There's like 120 homes in Essex County at all times under 700 grand.
And what's the population of Essex County? Like 1.6 million?
I'll default to you on that specific.
Oh, no, 800,000? I can't remember.
No,
but
I think it's more than that.
Certainly large.
But like, I mean, I guess I'd still call that affordable. Most people are either like the sub 550, sub 5, or they can go to 7, I feel like.
Yeah.
And yeah. I mean, listen, the affordability thing is an issue. We've spent far too much time on zoning. And I don't know. What's your take on the zoning? Like, what's the solve?
You're asking the wrong guy, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
I don't have too much to say about the zoning. I just know it's a challenge. And
that was such a political answer. I loved it.
But also, like, some of the municipalities,
Yeah.
to Brennan's point, just make it difficult to add more housing and build more housing. And that's, maybe that's one of the resolutions.
Did you
Well, I would.
fact check?
I am fact checking, and
Love that.
we will come back to that in a minute. But one of the things I would implore you, Sean, to get more involved in, because I think it is potentially devastating to your business, is the North Shore Realtors, and I'm sure Merrimack Valley Realtors also track. They have legislative committees that are tracking. They call them Airbnb regulations, but short-term rental regulations. I know in the town that I live in, we just banned all non-owner occupied short-term rentals except for 2 streets.
Yeah, my town is going through the same process of
Every
putting together
every
an
town,
ordinance.
every
Yeah.
town.
And I'm in all those conversations. I'm at all the town meetings, and they just drag on. And it's interesting to see 2 sides.
Is it banned or is it through like attrition? They're going to shut it down.
Nope, can no longer.
So you're operating today as a short-term rental,
Mm-hmm.
and let's say I bought a vacation home in this neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to come in as the municipality and say I can no longer operate my business,
Yes, it's
So-
a violation of a zoning bylaw.
and they can do that and
That's
not
the
shut-
risk of the business.
and
yeah.
they can't. That's so. My understanding is like all these discussions that have always come up, it's going to be like Salem, Massachusetts is a great example. In Salem, you cannot Airbnb anymore. Period.
But they have a reasonable elective body in Salem that is a little more sophisticated than these small towns.
So in Salem, you cannot file for any new permit. But if you run an existing Airbnb, go for it. So they're going to shut it down through attrition, right? It's like Pedex Island.
Yeah.
If you have a cottage out there, it's cool. We're not going to let you transfer it anymore, right? So
Most of these municipalities, though, didn't have any structure in place. So Salem already had a licensing requirement that allowed them to be able to do that. But the majority of the municipalities have nothing, right? Like Airbnb didn't exist 10 years ago.
Right.
So Salem was proactive in getting something, and then they amended it as it developed.
Yeah, short-term
But-
rentals, they're still so new in the grand scheme of real estate that the vast majority, especially of smaller municipalities, still don't have a grasp of how they affect their own towns. And so they're trying to be proactive about it, sometimes in the right way, sometimes in the wrong way, in my opinion. And we're going to see an evolution over the next several years of where this goes from like a small municipality standpoint. And so the topic of conversation that I always have with short-term rental investors is think about the worst case scenario. If you're
Right.
buying in X market, if that market were to ban or restrict short-term rentals, what's your backup plan? And so you always have to be thinking
Right.
about that in your underwriting of short-term rental deals.
I was going to say, do you think, and this is a thought that I'm just manifesting at this point, like, are short-term rentals really new? Like, I think people have been vacationing in some sort of 1 week long increments on the beach since the beginning of freaking time. The internet has just made it different.
Yeah, it's true. My parents have been doing short-term rentals their entire lives. They've
You
been
know what
going
I'm
to
saying?
Salisbury Beach for a week
Right.
every single year.
And so now that you have the internet where you have 2 to 3 different things, the municipalities can investigate better. You have the neighbors who can complain easier, and you have more advertisement of such. I just think it's opened the exposure and the lens to it so much more.
But it's also made it easier for people to operate a short-term rental with
For
sites
sure.
like Airbnb
For
and
sure.
Vrbo. Before Vrbo existed, it was, you're just doing it by word of mouth. Or
Yeah, I'd call
Or
the
the
local
want ads.
I'd call the local broker and I
Yeah.
say, I'm looking for a vacation home. Sean, what do you have? Oh, I know Susie, Billy, and Bobby. They all rent for the summer, right? So, like, it's been around, and that was never like illegal. It was never outlawed by the municipality, right? Like, we're talking like zoning. Like, I don't know.
I think there's an evolution of where people are renting, right? So like there's all
Anywhere.
And when Sean talked about the markets that he's in, so I heard Hampton Beach, Salisbury Beach, Myrtle Beach, and
Southwest Florida. Cape Coral.
Cape
Yeah.
Coral
Yep.
Beach, right? So all of those have the word beach in them, right? All of those are vacation.
Cape Coral's just a town.
Well, I mean, it's a little less town than Winthrop,
That's true.
right? So they're
fair.
more
big.
destination oriented, right? That have tourism as a part of the local economy.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas some of these towns like Boxford, right? Like, is anybody going to want, like, but you can rent. I bet if we looked on VRBO right now, there's probably a place in Boxford we
bet
could
you there is
rent,
too.
or
Yeah.
Topsfield. Like, so it has changed.
Vacationing in Topsfield, Massachusetts.
Well, if your family lives there and you have to go for Christmas and you don't want to stay with your mother-in-law, it makes a lot of sense to do
project,
it, right?
Don't project
No,
what you want to do.
You make an awesome point. This is also another conversation I have with all my investors is is like when you're looking at where to invest,
Mhm.
it's probably wise to invest in places that have always been vacation destinations where
Correct.
those economies rely on the revenue generated by visitors.
And
so
they're not going to shoot themselves in the foot and do some crazy legislative.
And so, like,
yeah.
nationwide, there are a lot of towns that everyone knows about that are, that heavily rely on vacationers. Orlando,
Mhm.
Florida,
Mm-hmm.
Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, more locally, Hampton Beach and Salisbury Beach. There's a much less likelihood that these municipalities are going to ban short-term rentals because it affects the entire economy.
Sure.
Yeah, 100%.
But like in Newburyport, where I live, they're not reliant on visitors
Mhm.
Right.
in a good way or a bad way. They don't need short-term rentals for the overall success of the business.
Overnight
Oh,
visitors.
Right, exactly.
They like day visitors in Newburyport.
Exactly. I could talk all day about that, which I won't. But there are certain towns like a Newburyport, for example, or even a Conway, supposedly in
Right.
New Hampshire, where if they ban short-term rentals, they feel like the
It really hurts the
businesses are
economy
still
long
okay.
term.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So as an investor, I think about investing in places that have less risk of these types of bans in
Yeah.
the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's your take on this is going to be an argument against yourself. What's your take on how short-term rental markets affect home ownership for the local community? I see this way more in Florida,
No.
right? So like,
But
like just for instance, where I have a short-term rental in Florida, like the prices skyrocketed like 4 or 5x in probably the last 10 years.
It affects affordability. The short answer is
Yeah.
it affects affordability.
Right.
Allowing short-term rental investors to invest in properties to be used as short-term rentals definitely affects affordability.
Yeah. It does.
But I will also say the affordability resolution isn't banning short-term rentals. It's probably a combination of several things. It's not just people.
Well said.
People like to point at short-term rentals as like the bad guy,
Yeah.
but affordability, like in Newburyport, for example, Newburyport's unaffordable, not because of short-term rentals, because
It's been
Because
unaffordable.
Newburyport has become this amazing town for all these amazing reasons, and the waterfront and the walkable downtown and the schools and it's not short-term rentals that made Newburyport unaffordable. It's Newburyport as a whole has grown into
Density,
this awesome
too.
place. Yeah.
and zoning.
Well said.
And zoning.
Yeah,
But people,
exactly.
it's like the easy thing to point at. Short-term
Yeah.
rentals, that's why. But if you just take away short-term rentals from a community, like Newburyport, for example, you're not going to see prices go down or flatline. It's still going to go up.
But let's walk this example back, because I disagree with it to some extent, right? So like the communities where short-term rentals are most popular are typically resort communities that, I think have changed over the last 10 years or so, especially with COVID and remote work, right? Like now it makes more sense to live in Siesta Key or Cape Coral, right? Because you can telecommute from your job. You can have a much better lifestyle. You can, have a different life than if you're in New York City or New Jersey or Chicago, right? So I think the demographics have changed as well. And these typically previous resort communities are now also becoming more long-term communities that are driving the prices up as well. So if they had stayed resort communities, I don't think anyone would be having this affordability discussion, because they were always investment in second homes. But now that we're getting more people coming in trying to live as primaries, now it's unaffordable. But I think that's more a demographic change in the communities where these are mostly located.
That's actually a really good point that no one's articulated that well to me. And I think a lot of it has to do with like you said, the shift in the work from home.
No doubt.
Fad.
In this general, like especially younger folks, right, that are looking at life as wanting to be fulfilled, right? Like nobody wants to go have a job that they hate and drive into work every day and just live in this monotonous life, where people are saying, hey, I can do this a different way. I can have joy and I can support my family and I can do all the things I want to do. And I don't have to have this like 1950s version of life. I can do it in on my terms.
Mm-hmm.
I like it.
Yeah.
He complimented you.
Yeah.
Did you catch it?
I did. Thank you.
I'm gonna take that back to Newburyport and start using that in my little pitch.
Yeah, I think you should.
Um,
I won't even charge you for that.
so we spent a lot of time on short-term rental affecting local market, all that type of stuff. Let's just talk global real estate market. I know it's bonkers right now, right? And I know it's tough if you're a buyer right now. Talk to us about what you've been seeing in your local market, and just quickly update the people, the listeners. How much of your business percentage-wise is Massachusetts versus New Hampshire, just for context?
I look at that probably quarterly, and it's almost exactly 50-50 right now.
Wow.
50,
Okay, cool.
50% in Mass, 50% in New Hampshire. When I became licensed as a resident of Massachusetts, I assumed most of my business was going to be in the state of Massachusetts. But what's happened with
everyone
this current
border
market,
shops, man.
A lot of people border shop, but in this market especially, and through COVID, people have been wanting more space. They've been wanting more privacy. So I've seen a lot of people sell in Mass and buy New Hampshire.
100%.
And a lot of people that I work with buy vacation homes, and New Hampshire is, in my opinion, unbiasedly one of the best states to buy a second home or a vacation home in, because you got the beaches, the mountains, the lakes. So New Hampshire has been a big part of my business. And so I'm in southern New Hampshire Seacoast. I go up to the lakes and mountains region. And in Massachusetts, I'm primarily in the North Shore, Greater Newburyport, and I'll go into Boston occasionally if it makes sense for my clients and I.
Yeah, sure, whatever. As far as okay, so now that you've covered the percentage of the business, which I would have still presumed you were probably like 75-25 Mass, right?
Yeah.
So I'm glad. Go further north. So talk to us just a little bit about what you're seeing in the market. I mean, we've remained of the opinion, based off the lack of inventory, that anything, let's just call it move-in ready. It could be clean, well kept, not abused. I'm still seeing it's flying. If it's a single family home, multifamilies remained hot, condos hit or miss. And then there's like the renovated stuff that even garnishes more, right? So catch us up, because I stay out of your hood, unlike you staying out of mine. So just tell us a little bit more about what you're seeing up in the north.
Well, to clarify, I'm hardly in your hood, just on occasion. But
it just seems like, I don't know if it's like the proximity on the algorithm or something, but every single time it's like offer submitted and it's like Winthrop, Massachusetts or Boston. I'm like, get out of here.
Well, it's just that one day you're on Instagram.
Well, that's how we met. We met a few years ago because my clients kept looking at Winthrop, and all the listings in Winthrop at the time were your listings. Yes, and they probably still are. So we kept running into mostly. You in Winthrop.
Yeah. And then we were like, everyone was chasing like Peabody for a while. It was super hot.
Yep.
And like every single house I went to in Peabody, like I would either be pulling into the driveway as Sean would be leaving, or I would be parked and he would park. I'm like, dude, stop this.
It's funny to.
It's good to have a stalker.
It's funny to look back and to see how relationships established, especially in this industry.
No doubt.
Anyways, back to your question. What am I seeing in the market? In addition to what we already talked about, regards to how challenging the market is because of inventory and rates, I like to talk about buyer expectations. Like, the expectation as a buyer today is that it's going to be a process as a buyer because of how competitive homes are. And we were talking offline that the turnkey single-family homes, especially in the North Shore and Southern New Hampshire, they are getting multiple offers after one weekend with most of the contingencies waived. And as a buyer, if you're going to compete for these types of properties, the mindset is that, if you can comfortably do this, to be aggressive with your price, as comfortable as you can be, and to make decisions onto whether or not waiving a home inspection will help you, or doing a home inspection for informational purposes will help you. And then I think the last thing that not a lot of people think about as new buyers is being flexible with your closing date. If you could provide the seller of that home flexibility in closing, that'll give that seller more time to find their next place. Because when people sell a home, usually they need a place to go. Not everyone already has a place. So a lot of my buyers, we talk about, if you have the ability to allow the seller, patience and flexibility on the closing date, that might put you ahead of some of the other buyers out there that need to close within 30 to 45 days.
I completely agree.
I hate flexibility in closing dates.
I know.
Because
so does the bank.
Yeah, everybody does, because from our side of the transaction, we need some predictability. And, I find when things are not in stone and up for decision later, that's when
we've talked about this a lot.
But would you say the alternative is a quick close with a lease back as an alternative
option? I like those better. With some concrete dates, and obviously flexibility on the leasebacks. But nobody wants to figure this stuff out before we get into contract. Everybody wants to leave it for everybody else to figure out later. And I think the more
you see how he looked at me.
No, you're actually really good at this. at
I've been coachable.
but getting things in place. Like the more you can decide before the other side brings their lawyers in, especially in Massachusetts, like the better off you are.
Yeah.
So like if you can get in your offer the terms of a UNO, you can get in your offer, the more you get in there, I can't then come in and say, well, we're not agreeing to that. That's crazy. Right. If you've already signed something that says you agree to this, like I'm bound.
That's really good advice, actually.
Yeah. So the more you can do that, the better.
I think a lot of realtors, I don't know if lazy is the right word, but I'll use
Ambiguous.
it. It's not the right word. Lazy is not, but I'll use it. A lot of realtors will take the lazier route and just get something signed and then let the attorneys do
the hard work.
Do the hard work. But I think if you're willing to do the hard work up front before an offer is signed, it makes the whole transaction easier from the realtor's perspective, the consumer's perspective, and the attorney's perspective.
Well, especially if you have multiple offers, right? If you have 25 offers and you have as a seller specific terms, like I've encouraged Seth, and I think you did it for a little while, like put a draft UNO in MLS and say, here's what the seller's willing to accept.
Right.
Like get a leg up on
one
it.
pager.
Right.
It's super easy.
I'm going to use that. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
We did it a couple of times previously when the market was super hot, and we're just like, we want this.
Mm-hmm.
These are the terms. We want it for free. We'll do it for this long.
For clarity, a UNO, just so the listener knows.
Oh,
$1.
Use and
Oh, yeah.
occupancy.
Good. Thank you.
Use and occupancy.
Yeah.
Lease back.
Yep.
Yeah. Commonly referred to.
But this is what lets a seller stay in the house after they sold it, right? So
which is important right now because part of the inventory issue is getting sellers off the fence, right?
So to be comfortable.
There's so many, and I think unfortunately sometimes you just have to bring the horse to water, so to speak. Like, hey, listen, I like to get properties signed to sell, and we'll just hold the listing, so I can be on market if you get your offer accepted today. I just have to go live, right? And that gives the seller a lot of confidence because if I'm writing an offer on your property, right, and you say, oh, you have to sell, I say, yeah. What's the first question you're going to ask me?
Is it live?
Is it under agreement? No, Sean, unfortunately, it's not yet.
And I need a month to get it cleaned up.
And like, when
photos taken.
Okay, it's no problem. When are you going to go live? Probably 14 days. I'd be like, dude, you know what? Kick rocks. Call me in 14 days. I'm going to either take the next offer or keep this thing on the market. And I'm going to let you freak out and try and pay for it, right? So we like to get it all ready. So all I got to do is push live. So I can say, listen, here's my draft MLS as part of my offer. I can be on tomorrow. And that works really well. But then you still can't get your offer accepted, right? And so it's a lot easier switch to flip to just say, like, Sean, hey, listen, what do you think? The market's really hot. You just saw that we got beat by 29 offers on that house. Do you think that maybe we should try and go live and then let you shop with a clear mind? Well, we're going to say your terms just like we just saw what happened. Let's do the same thing. Let's set our intention. Let's set our terms. And by the way, if you get an extra 30 or 40 grand, are you going to be able to put that down in the next property? Yes, I will. And like, boom, then the dam breaks. And now we're contributing to solving the inventory crisis to a degree, one step at a time.
I think part of the inventory issue is educating sellers about the options they have and the leverage that they have as sellers. If you list your house for sale, you don't have to sell it. You will sell it under your terms that make sense so that you could move on to whatever.
Especially in this market, right?
Especially in
Like
this market.
you can direct your terms in this market as a seller.
It's scary to be a seller for a number of reasons, but I think educating sellers of their options as sellers in this market, I think eases their mind to some extent because
I agree.
Buyers out there will do anything to win a seller over in a low inventory market. So sellers have so much leverage. They could choose their terms. I say that lightly, but they could essentially choose their own terms of the sale. But yeah, that's a really good point.
But I do think you're right. It's like it might not necessarily be. Its price is obviously super important, and you got to be in the wheelhouse. No one's taking usually 30, 40, 50 less thousand because you have flexibility, right? But if you're 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10K, and you're close, but you're the most flexible, the seller will take that bait, right?
Yeah.
Well, it comes back to like how much is everything worth, right? Like,
correct.
Is knowing that you can have the time to find something worth 10 grand. Like for most people, maybe, I think where do you start to draw that line becomes the question as the seller.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, I think I don't know if we've talked about this in too much detail, but my mind automatically goes here, which is the buyer's hesitation to be a buyer in today's market. And I think of a lot of the headlines that people see, and even what we talked about today, might scare buyers from buying because it's such a challenging market and so competitive and rates are high and prices are high. And so I always try to Well, I don't try to. I put myself in the buyer's shoes because I am a buyer myself. I bought a few months ago, and I hope to be a buyer again sometime in the near future as I.
We know a
Well,
good
that-
agent if you're looking in
Boston
Suffolk
area.
County.
Yeah.
But like, no, yeah, my, I think maybe the topic of conversation could be, if you're a buyer today, how can you comfortably approach the home buying process?
I think that's a great point and sort of a good segue to, another real interesting topic that Seth and I go down rabbit holes quite frequently on is like, as a sophisticated agent, how are you sort of doing that onboarding with buyers and prepping them for the roller coaster ride they're about to go on, right? So buyer lead calls, somehow gets you. What does that conversation look like, and how are you sort of moving them through the process to make sure that they go from lead to satisfied homeowner?
Yeah. So I don't really have like a system or like a process, a specific process I go through. It's really a case-by-case situation because every buyer has a different situation and comfort level and budget. And so like it's so case-by-case, but I just try to be, it sounds so simple
Mm-hmm.
and it might come off like too simple, but the truth is I just try to come off as a real person. Like I'm a real estate salesperson, but I always tell people I'm not selling real estate. I'm helping people buy real estate. I just want to be there to help people in their home buying process, understand what their concerns are, understand what their criteria is for a home, and then educate them on today's market and what they might need to do to be competitive in a multiple offer situation. But it's really just to funnel it down to one point. It's just setting proper expectations. Sometimes the expectation is a hard-hitting truth for buyers, especially for buyers that have bought in previous markets where like they had leverage to negotiate. But it's all about how you deliver the communication. And the truth is, it's a challenging market, but it's not a bad time to buy. If you're a patient buyer, there's deals out there. And if you buy today at higher prices and higher rates, it doesn't mean it's going to be a bad buy, especially if you're holding onto the property for a long time. And rates go up and down. You could always refinance in the future. Or so like the point is, it's just setting proper expectations and putting myself in the shoes of a buyer because I am a buyer in this market. And, I think, so it's really just kind of like setting up those expectations.
You said it like I say this to clients all the time, like equity is relative, right? Equity is relative to when you need to recapture it. So if this is the 7 to 10 year home, like what does it matter if you're going to pay X over asking?
I bought my last couple properties for over asking price, and I did it. I tried, and I submitted offers soon with like clean terms. I've waived home inspections.
Yep, same.
Because I wanted that property,
Waived
and
appraisals.
I didn't care overpaying for it because I knew I'm holding on to it for a long time. And if I didn't get it at that over asking price, 1 year from now it's gonna be worth more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yep. And hopefully when and if rates, I keep saying, I'm now saying if because like everything I've said about rates is wrong clearly. So if Bank of America doesn't know, Seth doesn't know either. So. When rates go down, if rates go down, are prices going to go up or are they going to go down with this inventory position?
What did Barbara Cochran say?
She said that now is a great time to buy because everyone's going to rush to the market even worse than it is right now. And like we think the 29 offers is bad, dude. It actually can get real scary.
I know.
You know what I mean for the buyers out there. So
anyways, my message to the buyers is be patient. Work with, it sounds, again, simple. Work with a local, skilled, reliable agent that can guide you through the process.
Local was the key.
Local, skilled agent.
There.
And there's good deals to be had. It's scary because prices are high. It's scary because rates are high. But rates aren't high relative to the average historical rate of around 8%. And you could always refinance in the future. And if I'm buying today and if Seth's buying today, then hopefully that's a vote of confidence for other buyers. But the point is, if you're going to be holding onto that property for a while, you should be okay. If it's a quick buy and maybe quick sell, then that's when it gets a little scary.
Caught.
That's when it gets a little scary.
No doubt. Well said. Go ahead.
Yeah, you said something interesting at the beginning that we haven't touched base on too much, and I'd love to dive in a little deeper. You said that I think one of your last roles in your corporate position was a customer experience role. Seth and I both spend a lot of time talking about transforming our businesses, based on making sure that one of the top priorities is an excellent customer experience. how did that role help you develop into the advisor, I would say more than a salesperson, advisor that you are to your clients?
I think it just taught me the importance of the customer experience. When you work in a small customer experience department in a big corporation, you get firsthand witness of what contributes to happy customers. And as a real estate investor at that time, while I was working in client experience, I was getting experience from other realtors, and they were good. I worked with a bunch of good realtors, but I always thought to myself, if I was a realtor, can I elevate the experience? And I think real estate had and might still have a reputation of being like somewhat
car salesman.
No offense to car salesman.
You were going to say that, right?
Yeah, I think it has had that reputation and still does in some ways. So I
agree.
always wanted to like transform the industry and transform the perception of the industry that realtors can be true advisors, just like a financial advisor is, or a CPA is, and that they could help you in the home buying process or help you in the investing process, not just sell you something. And when I made the conscious decision to become a licensed realtor, I focused on providing really great service, not just to consumers, but to other colleagues, other realtors. I told myself I wanted to be the nicest realtor in Newburyport, and I was so naive at the time. I was like, everyone's just going to be nice.
No, they're all actually terribly mean.
I've been
people.
I've been so surprised. I was like, why is everyone nice to each other?
Ego in this business, man, is outrageous.
But I was so naive, and I think that naivety played a really good positive role for me. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to be the nicest realtor in town, so that if my clients have a similar offer to someone else's, hopefully they just want to work with the nice realtor. And so I always and I can see why it's hard to stay nice all the time, but I want to continue to try to be just kind to other realtors and obviously nice and kind and helpful to consumers. But I think people just think consumers, but your relationships with other realtors and other attorneys and other lenders is almost as important.
Might be more important.
Yeah, I think it may be as well. Do you think that it is meanness or like a scarcity mindset? Like they just can't help it. Like they just don't see the world as abundant, and they're so scared that like they don't know where the next deal's coming from that they lash out. Like I don't know. I like to be optimistic about people generally, except ones.
Just for full disclosure, I'm razzing Sean about working in my market. But I do think a lot of people have scarcity mindset. Even when I first started in this business and I like launched a new CRM, I wouldn't tell anybody what I was running. Like I would never share my secrets. And here we are like giving away everything for free. Right. So
yeah, I have other realtors ask me like what my opinion is on projections of short-term rentals for their clients. And I tell them, I got nothing to lose. And plus I want to keep a relationship strong and grow a relationship. And honestly, if that other realtor's client buys a short-term rental that I helped with projections, maybe they hire my company to manage it.
100%.
So like there's always going to, I don't want to think about like favors, but I do believe that if you are good to other people, it does come around.
Reciprocity for sure. I'm sure I told this before on the podcast, but a couple months ago I had a realtor actually from Compass hit me up. He was listening to something in Winthrop. Not a Winthrop agent, so to speak, right? And he's like, hey, I'd love to get your take. We were like Instagram friends. He's like, I'd love to get your take. I actually think he posted it, and I DM'd him like, bro, what's going on? Tell me more details. And he's like, I actually would love for you to come check it out. I have some questions on where I should list it. And I was like, I can come tomorrow. I went the next day, and there was a weird scenario where one of the bedrooms was completely gutted in the house. And unfortunately, the seller got taken advantage of by a contractor, and they were just like forced to sell, didn't have the cash to finish it, all this type of stuff. And I had a contractor client who had literally the week before just lost on a property, was probably going to do some sort of like FHA type low money down financing. So experiencing some headwinds, right? And I go, dude, can I call my client? He's like, yeah, I don't care. And the sellers were there. We literally put a deal together in the living room an hour later. And like, if you weren't like the nice agent, I was like, I'm not going to help you price this. You're in my hood.
Right. But it's also like
what?
In that situation, because you are open to helping others, it ended up being a win-win-win-win for the seller, the buyer,
everybody.
The listing agent, the buyer's agent.
Yeah. We looked like rock stars.
Everyone's happy.
And the client, and like, so literally my client, we put it in contract. He went in post PNS and like renovated this room, got a seller credit, did all in like past appraisal. Like we finagled it.
Yeah, it was probably a somewhat challenging sale because of the condition, but a challenging market for the buyer. So everyone came together and
figured
agreed
it
on
out.
terms.
Right.
Yeah, that's
But it
actually-
wouldn't have happened without the relationship with the agent.
But there was no
Agreed.
relationship. It just started.
Yeah,
really-
we were like we just knew each other.
You were just
Yeah.
you were just nice and open and
That's it.
yeah.
It's crazy.
Obviously not everyone has that mindset, but I think one takeaway for realtors who are listening to this is if we could all just help each other, that'll help
Yeah.
our clients. And
Yeah.
the end of the game is to help our clients. So if we help each other, we help our clients. And I think that's like kind of like the mindset I've always had.
No doubt. All right, I want to chase. We're hitting an hour,
Mm-hmm.
and it's almost 2:00.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to chase a few quick questions for you. Is that cool?
Do it up.
All right. So Airbnb wise, what would you say your 2 to 3 like tips of advice? I know that's a very vague question. What do you tell somebody who's got an Airbnb and they're looking to improve revenue?
Can I do a shameless plug real quick?
Of course.
Yes.
YouTube, Sean Bakhtiari. I've got 2 Airbnb, what do we call them? Playlists?
Yeah.
Video series.
I've watched
2
them.
Airbnb video series.
How
And
to
so,
improve.
and actually, Sam behind the camera, shout out to Sam, has helped me with putting those videos together. And, but yeah, a lot of the topics I try to talk about there are probably questions that, well, they are questions that come up so commonly. So the question now is tips to help the Airbnb investor. To help them what? Maximize income or automate the process?
Yeah, I would say maximize income, increase occupancy.
All right, tip number 1.
Pet friendly.
Well,
That was tip number
that's
2.
that's definitely in there. So no, I'm not in no order of importance.
Sure.
Tip number 1 is invest in professional marketing. So that means professional photos, not your iPhone.
Yep.
Drone photos if you're close to amenities like lakes and mountains and oceans. Floor plans, so the viewer knows the layout of a property, because if you have kids or if you've got elderly grandparents, the layout matters. So number 1, invest in professional marketing. Number 2, be on the most popular websites. If you, obviously the first website that comes to mind is Airbnb, but arguably the second most popular website is Vrbo, booking.com. So if you can be on the most popular platforms and you have professional marketing that sets the foundation of hopefully a really successful short-term rental, I could give you 10, but I'm gonna give you a third. Third might be the most, equally as important. Again, no order of importance. Third is a dynamic, smart pricing strategy. If you have a set it and forget it calendar price, you're not going to maximize the income that your property can earn. Alternatively, you could use these online smart pricing tools. I use Price Labs.
Yeah, same.
You could set parameters, you could set rules, and Price Labs will take your property and price it just like hotels price their hotel rooms. They're priced based on supply and demand, based on seasonality, based on local events, based on holidays. And if your prices are changing based on demand, that'll help you maximize income and minimize vacancies. So those are 3.
What about decor?
Oh God, don't get me started. So you see, just 3 is hard.
Yeah.
So here's the 4th. A unique concept and design. I try to talk about this a lot because back in the day, 4 years ago, you could just buy any property, put it on Airbnb, and it would rent because there wasn't a lot of inventory. Now there is an influx of new inventory of short-term rentals. There's so much more competition, and if you're just another property in your market without a unique design, you're not going to stand out. So a design, decor, accents, that goes a long way.
Okay. I love it. How often are you changing pricing?
I don't change pricing. My smart tool
Wow.
changes the pricing. Okay, so here's the thing. The Price Labs, my smart tool,
Yep.
changes prices daily.
Right.
Every week, my business partner goes into the smart tool,
Reviews
logs
it.
into Price Labs, reviews our vacancies, and adjusts our parameters and rules based on upcoming bookings. So on a day-to-day basis, it's automated, but every week we go in and we just see if our rules, our pricing rules are set so that we're booking in this market.
I love it.
For both your own properties and the ones you manage.
Correct. So
Yeah.
all of my personal properties, my business partner's personal properties are all managed the same exact way as our
Yeah.
clients' properties are managed, the same rules, the same systems, the same pricing strategy. And so when my business partner goes into Price Labs every week, he looks at our entire list of properties and adjusts prices for the properties that are either booking too fast. If your properties are booking too fast,
Too
you're
cheap.
priced too low.
Yeah.
If your properties aren't booking enough, you're probably priced too high. And if your properties are
Crazy.
booked where it should be, like Price Labs will color code it. If it's
Yeah.
like color coded property, like you're in where you're supposed to be, you leave prices alone.
If you had to automate, if you're a small time investor and you were thinking about how do I make this more automated, what would be your piece of advice for them?
Okay, first and foremost, automate the messaging and automate the pricing. Those are the two things that are so time consuming. Before my business partner and I partnered to systematize our business, our short-term rental business, I was doing everything myself. It was all manual. I was messaging the guests myself. I was changing the prices daily myself, and it's a full-time job. Automate the messaging, which you can do on Airbnb itself or through a third-party app like Guesty. Automate the prices, which again you could do on Airbnb or through a third party like Price Labs. If you automate those two
Can
things,
they integrate into the platforms?
yeah. So so Price Labs and Guesty, when you update the property information on those two third party platforms, they integrate into Airbnb, into Vrbo, into Booking.com, and into any other major online platform. So automate those two things, and then the third thing is create virtual house manuals. So when people book your place, in your automated messaging should be a link to the virtual house manual. In this virtual house manual, which I just use Google Word or
Drive. That's what I use.
So I use Google Drive.
Here's the link.
And it's a simple link that's sent to the person who booked, and it's got everything you need to know about the property, the address, the Wi-Fi information, how to use the thermostat, where all the systems are located, because every property is so unique. And if people have questions, they can just reference that for the most part, or if it's not in there, you add it in there, and your house manual gets more and more in depth as you get more and more bookings and questions.
I love it. Brendan, do you have any questions?
No.
All right.
Questionless.
All right. I have. I'm gonna start a new segment. You ready?
Oh shit! I didn't know this was coming.
This is gonna be a good one.
I love it when he does that.
Sponsored by LaCroix?
No, no. Spindrift is our new target.
Oh wait. We're gonna do one short story, and then I'm gonna do the segment, and then Brendan's gonna close us out. You ready?
Okay.
So
buckling up.
Because you're from Newburyport, I had asked you this offline, and you started to tell me a story, and I was like, you're gonna have to stop because I want to hear this one live. Okay. So I really want to boat into the the Merrimack River, and everyone tells me it's really dangerous, and so I was just simply asking Sean an authentic question. Hey, do you know much about boating in the river? Now, I used to wakeboard deeper in the river, in my day, and the current kind of rips there, so I can understand that the mouth of the river can be dodgy. Okay, so can you just quickly tell us about the mouth of the river? What is it like? And then feel free to give us any relevant examples.
When I moved to Plum Island, I didn't realize how dangerous the mouth of the Merrimack River was. I soon learned, and don't quote me on this, I'm pretty sure it's the most dangerous river mouth this side of east of the Mississippi River, and top 5 in the country. And that's based on how many boating accidents and deaths there are per year. It is dangerous because of how strong the current is and because how unpredictable the currents are when the tides change.
Yes.
Let me also say, I'm not a boater. I know nothing about boating. And I think living near the Merrimack River makes me want to be less of a boater because when I live just this past week, I heard helicopters at midnight.
Stop.
Whenever I hear helicopters outside my bedroom window, I know they're searching for somebody or a boat that's capsized, and it happens countless number of times every summer.
Really?
Can I ask a dumb question?
Yeah.
Might not be dumb to me.
Is Plum Island near the end of the Merrimack River?
Right at the end.
Oh, it doesn't end at that bridge?
No, it goes towards...
On 95? I thought that was the end of the river. No, it keeps going?
So Plum Island is literally the end of the river. So on one side of the mouth of the river is Plum Island. On the northern side of the river is Salisbury Beach. And that mouth leads into the Atlantic Ocean. And there's always boats going in and out. I don't want to scare boaters. If you're a experienced boater, I'm sure you can navigate the waters easily. But the challenge is the inexperienced boaters that think it's easy to go in and out of the mouth. It's not. So my public service announcement is, if you're not an experienced boater, have fun in the Merrimack River.
Brandon was going to take that somewhere different, I think.
No, I'm still stuck on that bridge on 95. Is that near Plum Island?
Are you talking about the story last year?
No, I'm just talking about that bridge that you go over on 95.
Yeah.
Is that near Plum Island?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, okay. For some reason, I envisioned Plum Island in a different area.
Plum Island is obviously east of that bridge, and probably
I'm gonna pull up a.
We're gonna need a map for this.
Probably 5 miles.
Oh,
from
okay.
downtown Newburyport.
But that bridge is close to downtown
yeah, it is.
Newburyport.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so I'm way off.
Just for some
Yeah.
context, bridge.
Oh, okay.
This is Route 1.
Yeah.
Is that what you're referring to?
95.
I'm talking old Route 1. 95's way in. Dude.
Oh, I thought the one you
So
go
you
over
have-
on 95 was the end of the river.
So you have 95, then you have old Route 1, and then this is where it balloons.
Yeah, this is where.
And because Plum Island's way out here, and then Salisbury.
So where's the scary part over here?
Right
well,
there.
so
Right
I'll just show satellite real quick. This will add some context.
We're doing an overlay, listeners.
So you can see how first off, people don't understand.
Oh, that doesn't look safe.
Even from Florida, people don't get it. Like we have like a 10 to a 14-foot tide.
On a normal
Well, 14 is really high, but we have like an 8 to a 12-foot tide in Boston Harbor. That means the water, if you don't understand what I'm talking about, goes up or down 8 to 12 feet twice a day. One's higher than the other. Okay, so when you have, just think about it. When you have an ocean and a river, and they're equalizing at 10 feet, like that's why you have locks that, and all these things. And this obviously does not have that. It just has current. It flows like freaking crazy at the mouth. Now there's this concept called slack tide, meaning it's just at neutral tide. It's when the tides are completely changing and everything's just like kind of chill. Great time to potentially go through the mouth of the Newburyport River.
You know way more about tides than I thought you knew.
Well,
Have you ever
been to the Cut Bridge in Gloucester?
Don't think so.
Okay, well, do yourself a solid, Mr. Instagram, and follow the Cut Bridge dude on Instagram.
Really?
The Cut Bridge is maybe a little bit wider than this room.
The one that gets you into the Annisquam?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that
And
one's a scary one too.
It is very scary.
Yeah.
It is not super wide, and man, the current freaking explodes in there. And so just imagine a very, very narrow bridge and inexperienced boaters trying to go to the beach. And it's like ping pong city. Very funny.
I've got a whole bunch of friends that are experienced boaters. They've got no issue going in and out of the mouth. And
Okay.
they have a blast. They go out of the mouth. They go south through Ipswich into Rockport into Gloucester. They have a blast. But I've seen so many accidents, and my parents had an accident themselves. Luckily, no one got hurt. But they bought. I guess this is the story we're talking about.
This is the story, yeah.
So they, my dad was so excited. He always wanted a boat, and he lives on Plum Island too. We're practically neighbors, which is awesome. So my parents have.
He's not a listener.
They've wanted the boat for a while. He finally got his dream boat. It was delivered from Florida. They put it into the marina. They took it out for its maiden voyage. Went into the mouth of the river, came back, parked at the marina, had friends over, and a few hours later it sunk to the bottom.
Ooh.
The whole time the boat was out, there was a hole. I don't know the exact phrase, but there was a hole in the boat the whole time they had it out. If it had sank in the mouth of the river, I don't think anyone would have been safe. Luckily, they were.
It sank at the dock.
It sank at the dock.
Yeah.
They had it out for one day. It sank at the dock. More so because of like human error.
I don't know.
Human error than anything.
Did they hit something?
I think on the journey from Florida to Plum Island, it must have like gone over something and something cracked.
Oh,
Okay,
wow.
so this wasn't like a navigation issue.
No. However,
Hypothetically.
I always tell
That's the story. That's the story you got.
That's a good story.
I will say though, I tell myself it's like I tell myself this just because I'm a positive guy. It might be a blessing in disguise because my dad's not an experienced boater. He's really smart and can learn it easily, but it's sinking at the marina could have been a lot better than an unexperienced boater
100%.
taking it out and like not knowing how to navigate the tides.
Does Dad have a boat now?
No, and he will not get a boat in the Merrimack River. He wants a boat, but he wants it on a lake or in the Cape Coral Canals.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay. All right, new segment. You ready?
I can't wait to hear about it.
I put some time into prepping this.
Oh, God.
This was not in any of our workshop
Nope.
calls.
This is new to you and I?
Yeah,
This is
we're
new.
we're
Yeah.
both
And then you're going to close
getting
this
it
out.
live.
All right, so it's called overrated or underrated. You ready?
Ooh, who gets to answer?
Sean.
Oh, just Sean.
You can answer too.
All right.
Salisbury Beach.
Underrated.
Why?
I'll say this. The beach of Salisbury is by far the nicest beach north of Boston and south of Maine.
Even Gloucester beaches?
The beach itself, not the town. The town has a lot to be
Bold.
a lot to be desired, but the actual beach, the sand, the low tides, the high tides, the beach itself by far is the nicest beach north of Boston.
Okay. Wow. Underrated or overrated? Plum Island erosion.
Oof, underrated.
Wow.
We've got erosion challenges, and we've luckily did some dredging over the past couple months and added 400 feet of sand to our beaches. However, it might be a temporary fix, not a permanent fix. And so and a lot of the erosion comes from the tides, the drastic tides of the Merrimack.
Right. Makes sense. Okay. Underrated or overrated? Michael's Harborside.
People are going to hate when I say this. I'm going to say overrated.
I love it. Thank God. Tell us why.
Well, I don't know. I don't go to Michael's Harborside that much. Not to say I don't enjoy it. They got great seafood. However, I'm more of a vibe guy, and I love the vibe across the way at the deck, and I love the vibe from my people at Bar 25 and Paddle Inn.
Okay, just to segue quickly, underrated, overrated, the deck in Salisbury.
Underrated. My next client event is at the deck.
Oh, my God. Will I get an invite?
Yeah, you can come. You guys can both come.
When is it?
June 28th.
Okay,
which is a Wednesday.
It's like a Wednesday, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Okay.
I invited Sam to come and shoot it.
Nice.
But
love
he's
that.
undecided at the moment.
Ooh.
He might be too busy.
Wow, that's unacceptable, Sam.
The deck. I can't wait for the deck.
Tell us about. I haven't been there,
You ever been to the deck?
and specifically, I'd like to boat there.
You should boat there.
Which is, I'm very selfish in asking most of these questions
No,
right now.
You should. As a matter of fact,
But I'd have to go up
Is
the
this
river.
at noon?
that's fine. It's not dangerous to boat to the deck. It's
What time is your client event?
How is it not dangerous? It's in the river.
6 to 8 p.m. Can you boat back at 8?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Okay.
I've done worse.
Okay.
But it's in the river. How is I'd have to go through the mouth of the river and go deep in.
Oh,
get
that's
to the
right.
deck.
That's right. So you're going.
Yeah, I'm not coming through the
That's
river.
right. That's right. Yeah. So, yeah, just make
What
sure.
time is the client event?
6 to 8?
Is there a Freedom Boat Club up the river?
There
There
probably
is.
is one.
We
Yeah.
could probably just
Okay, we are recording again. So we were.
the deck.
Yeah,
was
tell
the
us more
last
about the
question.
deck and why is the deck underrated?
The deck's underrated, not for the reason people might think. It's amazing because of the views of the Newburyport skyline, the multiple levels.
Hold on.
Aren't
Yeah,
they
I
all
know,
just beach
I know,
decks?
I know what you're gonna say. The skyline. There's a skyline. We got steeples.
Okay.
Okay.
Of
Loose,
condemned churches.
Okay.
loose definition
Of a
of the
skyline.
word skyline.
A great skyline. It's
Okay.
awesome because of the views of the amazing skyline.
Of the village
That
of
was amazing. Skyline.
Newburyport.
The sunsets.
The,
Maybe.
Oh.
the reason why it's underrated, people don't go there for the food, but the food's awesome.
Really?
The food
Oh.
is like this unexpected added bonus of the experience. So great views, great drinks, live music, and then food. It's just a whole.
They have live music like all the time.
Yeah.
What's the genre of food?
It's mixed. It's mixed. So you
Bar
have
food, seafood.
yeah, you get some seafood, but you have a mix of like American fare, seafood, sandwiches, salads.
Like a lobster taco? Like what? Like
So I've gotten the fish taco. I've gotten the
Should I pull up the menu?
calamari.
I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out like what the flavor of this
Do
underrated
you know what?
food
Do you know what I'm talking about?
situation-
The deck.
No,
Dude,
I don't
Dude,
go.
dude. I haven't been there, but I
Yeah.
follow them on Instagram, and
Yeah.
I've like for 2 years I've been talking about going to the deck.
I think North Shore Real Producers did
They
an event
did,
there,
which
and
I
we
didn't go
both
to.
didn't go.
I was
Right.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was
of
there and
course.
I didn't see you.
oh, that's
That's
because I wasn't there.
The deck, Salisbury.
I've driven by it. So a friend of mine just moved to Hampton. Maybe Hampton. I think Hampton.
Have you gone out in Hampton? Are you going to ask me if Hampton's overrated or underrated?
Is Hampton overrated or underrated?
Hampton Beach, underrated, overrated.
Underrated.
What? Come on, it's so overrated.
No, it's underrated because people's perception of Hampton is what it used to be, and it used to be
Hampton or Hampton Beach?
like Hampton Beach.
Okay.
Hampton Beach used to be, and I hate to use the word, it like used
A carnival,
It used to be very like I'll just
white trash.
it used to be trashy. Now
Mhm.
Hampton has developed, and there's really cool businesses there, and there's great nightlife options, and of course it has got its like pockets of like sketchiness still, but it's surprisingly a great night out, and there's decent food options, and there's more and more businesses coming to Hampton, and a lot of real estate development. So like underrated for a night out and underrated as an investment.
Isn't the casino getting redone?
The casino.
Hampton Beach Ballroom
Is
Casino.
it getting redone?
I think I
it
saw
was-
Dane Cook there in 2003. and
I
it
saw
was like-
Sebastian Maniscalco there.
yeah,
Guess how much
Oh.
a ticket cost to see a
$11.
It was $16. Yeah.
$500
What?
Stop.
to see Sebastian Maniscalco.
Was there 3 seats?
No, I'm telling you, the huge acts. go
Did
to
he
Hampton.
come and pick you up at your house?
I'm going to a concert in Hampton in 2 weeks. I'm going to see Collie Buds.
Who?
I don't even know what that is.
Collie-
Cauliflower?
Collie Buds. He's a reggae artist.
Are we?
It's Sammy
Yeah.
Adams.
Are
and
we in
Collie
the
Buds.
same conversation?
No. You. Yeah. Let's regress.
I'm so much older than you.
I can get behind an underrated real estate market. I just don't know if I will ever be. I'm never just getting in the car and ripping up to Hampton Beach.
No.
These days.
Well, no, of course. If you
what
live
about
in
Hampton Falls?
But there's probably
nice.
you'll probably hopefully it's still open. This will probably show up the last time I was there was this like really divey place right off Old Route 1, Beach Pizza. incredible.
Tripoli's.
That's what it's called.
Tripoli's. Oh yeah, beach pizza.
Underrated.
Underrated.
I went to a cool taco place in Rye on the beach, I think. Like across the street from a beach.
This is a good story.
Petey's. Was it Petey's Seafood?
No, it was a taco place.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I don't know the name.
Yeah, it was cool.
The big debate up there in the North Shore is regarding beach pizza. Are you a Tripoli's person or Christie's person? My household's divided. I'm Tripoli's.
interesting.
I didn't even
My
know
wife's
beach pizza
Christie.
was a thing.
There's
Oh,
something
huge
about like a
debate.
sweet beach pizza that's just really something else, man. Let me tell you.
What rock do I live under?
Okay.
Beach pizza is a thing? I don't
yeah.
even like to eat at the beach because you get sand everywhere.
Didn't you grow up in Nahant? So
Yeah.
like, why would you ever just leave Nahant?
They don't have beach pizza.
Yeah, but they have a beach and there's the Tides, I guess, which is pretty decent. Not really. What was the Tides used to be called?
The Tides.
That's what I thought. Okay, cool. I do have the menu here. It looks pretty.
It's big. They have a lot of
Average
options.
fare.
Looks pretty small. I think I'm looking at the wrong menu. Okay, I have. You had an underrated, overrated.
Oh, Tender Crop Farm.
Tender Crop Farm is underrated. Great place for produce. Great place for meats. Great place for flowers. A lot of prepared soups. And
I don't know why that made me laugh.
and if you have kids like myself, I got twin girls that are almost 3. They've got farm animals, so you can just go there and bring your kids to the animals, and they'll have an hour of fun.
Yeah, we went there
Which
one day and
sometimes
I
we
was
need.
like, I'm moving to Newbury.
Yeah.
Like, I loved it. There's
Really
also
cool.
one in Wenham.
Wow.
The one in Wenham is not as good as the one in Newbury.
Underrated. Tender Crop, underrated.
Yeah, underrated.
All right, I have the last one. Actually, no, I don't. I don't have anything else. That was it. That's our new segment.
I like the new segment.
Let me ask you
Oh,
2
boy.
overrated or underrated
All right,
questions.
hit me with it.
Chelsea as a real estate market.
Overrated.
Eastie as a real estate
I
market.
want to.
Tell me why.
So here's the deal. Okay, when you look at Chelsea topographically, you like want it to be significantly more valuable because it sits on the river. You have views of the city, depending on where you're at. There's some pretty cool spots at Chelsea where you get some sick views of the city and the skyline. But at the end of the day, it's not on train transit. It's on bus transit. And quite frankly, I don't know the stat as of 2023, but I'm pretty sure last year it was one of the top most dangerous places in the United States. Okay. So I like to judge communities by when I'm selling to clients is like, would I go for a run at night? And unfortunately, I think I would opt out of that. And I know I'm not supposed to say any of these things, and I don't really care. For that reason, coupled with, as an investment, the prices are insane.
They're high, right?
They're super freaking high. And so when you look at things like that versus Eastie or Revere, for instance, or Lynn or anything up this coast.
What about Everett?
Overrated.
Saturated.
Overrated. The casino inflated prices so much. Traffic stinks right now. There's going to be a lot more stuff happening there, and it's certainly being beautified. But I just think that it is significantly. There's better investments closer to the city that I think will have long-term better gains and more stable rents.
Give me 2 right now.
Give you what?
2 neighborhoods that'll be better options than Chelsea.
Oh, yeah. Well, so you just were going to ask me the other question. Eastie. Underrated. Underrated, yeah.
Still.
I'll tell you why. I mean, and listen, there's significant development happening there. I think it's directionally on price with Chelsea to a degree, depending on where you're at. I think just the vibe, the train, the blue line, quite frankly, is underrated. Even though right now it's like very shitty. It's the newest rail. It's one of the fastest. I mean, we're 4 stops from the city. I don't know when the last time you were like down on the East Boston waterfront is. It's bonkers. And I think for that reason, the rents are insane. The commutability is insane. And I think all the, it's going to be a bumpy next year with like the tunnel and whatnot. But I think for all of those reasons, as the city, like the Boston proper, you look at prices in Southie, you look at Cambridge, Charlestown, it doesn't matter, Back Bay, South End, they're bananas. And if you just look at what you can, like I have a condo in the South End right now, that's 900 square feet for $1.2 million, adequately priced. What is that in East Boston right now? It's half the price still. Mm-hmm. And there's a bunch of units, and you can get brand new construction. And I think for that reason, it's still underrated because all those, I I'd rather be in Eastie than Southie.
Yep, I would agree.
You know what I mean?
Because of value.
Because of value, and demo to a degree too, but, and I would say the other community.
You're too biased to say this, but
I have one.
But
Winthrop or Revere.
I was gonna say Winthrop. I tell all my Boston friends that Winthrop is so underrated,
Yeah,
and
I
there's
agree.
still good value in Winthrop, and you're still so close to everything, the North Shore and the city of Boston.
Yeah.
But I feel like you hesitate to say it because this is your.
I would say, it's still super underrated. I think it's like a super obvious. You can get new construction condos over there with roof decks in the 500-600s. Like it's just with parking, with a private yard. There's plenty of units on right now, and you can still get a 6 single family. Like a beautiful single family was just flipped. It sold for $9.25. And it's on like a main road. It's not a main road. It's not like a high traffic road. It's super quiet, and you have a huge private yard. You have plenty of parking, and at the end of the day, you cannot get that anywhere in Boston proper, or quite frankly, even in Chelsea. And Winthrop's a quieter, more safe community. So, anywho, Brandon, close it.
Okay, Sean, if you were to boil down the next year into one word to describe what you're going to focus on, what would that word be?
Service. Service is my word.
Tell us more about that.
Yeah.
Because service is something I talked about this. You can control service, but you can't control the market. I can't control interest rates. I can't control the inventory, but I can control my service to my clients. And if it doesn't result in a lot of business in the next 12 months, that's okay because people will remember service. And eventually, when they're ready to buy, I like to tell myself they'll go to the person that provides good service, and they may tell friends and family about the good service they had. I do that to other people when I get good
100%.
service. And if I get bad service, it's the opposite. I tell them, don't use that person.
Mm-hmm.
Service.
And you tell more people about the bad than you did the good.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's true. I shout louder when it's bad service.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Service is my word. What's your word?
Mine was it accountability?
It was.
It was, yeah.
That's a good one too.
To both myself and those around me and my team.
Seth, what's your word?
Geez, now I don't remember.
Well, you don't have to remember.
Was it hustle?
I think it was.
That's what's jumping out in my mind. But
I think it
could
was
be
going to
wrong.
be accountability, and you said it first.
Yeah.
Imagine if we combined those three words: hustle, accountability, and service.
There should be like core values.
Imagine
Yeah.
you focus on those three things. How well positioned you'll be in 12 months.
Yeah.
Bananas.
The nicer version of hustle is drive, and we did make it one of our core values here at Reference. You just got to grind in this business, man. That's what it's about. So
Yeah. Before I got here, last comment from me is I'm telling all my fellow realtor colleagues that if you make it out of this market comfortably, you're going to be in a really good position because there's going to be a lot of people. I think we talked about it. There's a lot of people leaving the business.
Mm-hmm.
And so keep your head down, serve your clients well,
Grind.
control what you can control. And then once the market shifts, you're going to be in a really good position. And it's not all about your own business. It's about treating others well because, colleagues and realtors, because it's going to come back to you and it's going to benefit you, although that's not your primary focus, but that's just how it works.
dope.
Couldn't agree more.
Awesome, man.
Awesome.
It was sick having you on. We appreciate you coming down and spending some time with us.
Thanks for having me, you guys.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Let's get you up to the deck.
Let's do it.
All right.